we do have to talk about, so actually big news on Monday morning is the All Blacks unveiled their first squad of 2022. 6 new ins, new caps, and six players left out of the squad from last year, I believe. I'll start with you, Paul, since you're feeling pretty chippy this morning, I can tell. What was your biggest surprise of the squad?
I'm probably looking at those who missed out in terms of surprises. I think probably Cullen Grace should mark himself as very, very unlucky. I think he's been one of the loose forwards of the competition pretty much throughout. So I think he's very, very unlucky. You could probably have a look at someone like Ethan de Groot as well, especially seeing as Tui Nukuafi got selected ahead of him, and yet he's heading off to brighter things in France, I think it is. But I think maybe Ethan de Groot and to a lesser extent Shannon Frizzell maybe have suffered because of the performance of the Highlanders. So, and of course injuries as well. And Luke Jacobson, you can throw him in there as well. Yeah, in terms of surprise, it's more of those who missed out as opposed to those who got in. So, yeah, I thought Cullen Grace, very unlucky.
Fair enough. Was anything that jumped out to you, Richard, when the team was named?
Yeah, I'm sort of with Paul there. I think everyone who got selected, their name had probably been thrown out there on this podcast or, various other podcasts or media out there. I was probably surprised they went with Sowakula. There was a couple of other people in the, not that he's played badly, he's been brilliant this season and Pataranaki last year, but there's probably a few of those other loose forwards like Jacobson and Grace who, play a different sort of mold, but it probably might signal sort of the way that the All Blacks want to go, someone a bit more dynamic, something a bit different. So looking forward to seeing him have a go. Great to see Fakatava get in there. I thought Weber maybe a bit unlucky. I wouldn't have been surprised if they went with 4 halfbacks, but I see both TJ and Weber in the Māori All Blacks, so they'll both get a chance at Ireland as well. So yeah, but it's a good team. I'm looking forward to seeing some of these new guys get a chance.
Sure. What was your big talking points, James?
Probably the biggest surprise for me was, you've already mentioned it, but Kyle Tunofiaki. Just because he's off to France, I thought he would be not even really in that picture. Thought Ethan de Groot, when he played against the Blues, was massive. He dominated that game, was massive at scrum time. So I was surprised to see him miss out to him. So that was probably the biggest surprise. But like you guys have mentioned, so many guys were unlucky. The halfbacks was always going to be a tough decision. 2 world-class halfbacks have missed out. Loose forwards, there was a lot of guys going for that one spot once Ethan Blackadder was injured, I think. So they've obviously gone for big Peter Gus there, and he's had a massive season. So looking forward to seeing what he can do in that All Black jersey. But like you've mentioned, there's probably 3 or 4 really unlucky guys who could have easily picked up that spot as well.
Yeah, certainly. I think that Blackadder injury obviously opened up, I think, quite a selection conundrum for the selectors, because there was probably, they'd had him penciled in there and then there was no sort of clear replacement. It could have gone to 4 or 5 guys. The de Groot one, I mean, we've all touched on it. That was the surprise for me, because it does sound like the coaches have given him a couple of work-ons to go in a way, and they want to see him improve before he comes back in the All Blacks. But you'd think, with the World Cup just 18 months away or less, that you'd rather have him in camp so you can maybe get your hands on him and mould him yourselves there. So that's something. And I do wonder with the halfbacks, if just knowing that Brad and TJ both are eligible for the Māori All Blacks and they can still be in a All Black camp of sorts, that maybe played into some of the thinking there. Finlay Christie and Folau Fakatava obviously both had great seasons as well, but sort of keeps everyone in some sort of national selection mould and gives them another chance to make their play. I see you maybe nodding along a little bit there, James. Are you thinking?
I 100% agree with that, especially Fakatava. Lock him in to New Zealand rugby. These other 2, give them a chance. I was surprised they didn't do that with Mark Talair as well, to be fair. I thought opportunity to get him locked into the New Zealand rugby system for the next, 3 or 5 years now. So, but he's got an opportunity to play for either South Africa or Samoa. So it'll be interesting to see what he does over the next couple of years leading into this World Cup. But you also mentioned Ethan de Groot and his couple of work-ons. Biggest one for me was, one of his work-ons was mobility, and then they go and pick Kyle Tunofiaki, who's hardly the most mobile prop, obviously a very good scrummager. But yeah, just really interesting to hear that sort of feedback.
If Blackadder isn't injured, is it Peter Gus that misses out?
I think so,
Has to
right?
be, I think.
Although he
yeah.
does, I like the Sokola selection, and it's certainly not what I was expecting at all. He obviously started with a hiss and a roar, but then maybe tailed off a little bit.
Cooled off, he did.
Yeah, but he brings a very unique skill set. Like he's got that sort of rampaging running style that can knock an Irish defensive line backwards, and maybe I think that's what they saw we needed at the end of year tour last year. We were struggling to get that go forward ball against these huge physical packs of like Ireland, France, South Africa, who are sort of those other world class sides at the moment. So yeah, maybe it wasn't, but maybe they just needed a point of difference there.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely not like for like, is it? You know, they're very different players. But when you look at the rest of those guys in the loose forwards, they may have potentially dropped one of the locks, maybe drop the likes of Lord, maybe, and have Sokola and Blackadder both in there with by sort of I don't know, but.
How good's a bit of speculation, I think. But we sort of touched on it there. I guess one thing I did want to ask you, James, do you think these selections, is there any clues we can read into with maybe like the Sokola selection or anything else about how the All Blacks want to play this season? Any style changes we maybe look forward to?
Yeah, it's hard. It's really hard to know or tell from going off the squad, but because this squad is only selected for this Irish, these 3 tests against Irish, and then it's going to could be completely changed for the what is it now, the Rugby Championship. So obviously Ireland, it's going to be cold, wet, dewy nights, middle of winter against an Irish team who love to play, love to keep the ball. So yeah, it is hard to say. The starting 15 is going to be the real interesting one. What's that starting 15 going to look like? Is Peter Gus, he's in the squad, but is he actually going to be starting number 8? I don't think so. So it's hard to know how their style is going to match up, just going from quite a big squad.
Yeah, that loose forward trio in particular is just one hell of a Rubik's Cube. I think you can have any sort of number of combinations there before you. But sort of along the same lines, Paul, do you think maybe the squad selection does show the coaches are feeling a little bit of pressure? They know they need a big series against Ireland. They can't sort of use this as a trialing ground for next year in France.
I think they're sort of having a sort of 50-50 sort of. There is going to be a certain amount of sort of trialing without actually going too far outside the square. So yeah, they've picked a very, very strong squad, and I'm sure that first test they're going to put their number 1 15 on the field to kick things off. They don't want to get 1-0 down in the series and have to start playing catch up. Although I had a look at the odds just a little while ago, I think the Irish were still just under the $5 mark to win the series.
All Blacks 3-0 still trading odds on, which
it's a wee bit. I don't know if it's because of the sort of action that we've already taken on that, but it does seem a wee bit sort of optimistic for mine. I can see the Irish winning at least one of those tests, especially if the weather plays its part and they get a cold, wet, rainy night somewhere in New Zealand.
Although, like it's 2-0 going into the third test in Wellington, and maybe the All Blacks do give
then
it
they
to
do
you guys
be a wee bit more sort of experimental. But yeah, I don't mind the look at, and I think back to the Lions tour as well, and the drawn series at $41 sort of tweaks my interest as well.